Good evening. This is the art scene. This is my first Zoom program. I'm your host, Lila Snow. And I was hoping to divide this 15 minutes into two parts. Of course, I have to kvetch and vent. That's my persona. So I wanted to start. My favorite columnist at the Washington Post is Dana Milbank, and I became a big fan of his when a few years ago he had a column about his Bubbe's Yiddish words. And then recently he had a column about what if Trump was in charge of the Manhattan Project, which actually, the choice of Oppenheimer was actually questioned because there's a big difference between a theorist in Manhattan who's never taken anything apart, who sits with his tools are a pencil and paper, and the Midwestern physicist who, at the age of 10, is taking his radio apart and putting it back together again. At 14, is taking his car apart. And as one physicist put it when he heard about the choice, Oppenheimer, he's never been in charge of so much as a hot dog stand. Well, actually, it worked because he had so much charisma that all the experimentalists who were very clever wanted to impress him. So, and General Groves, who had to fight against the authorities because Oppenheimer had, his brother was a card-carrying communist, he had links, but he was brilliant in seeing that this would work. So when I saw that article, it also reminded me about the famous letter that was written by Einstein to persuade FDR to start the Manhattan Project. Well, it turns out, we didn't know this at the time, but my husband's thesis advisor, Eugene P. Vigner at Princeton, had just bought a new car in 1939, and he was a Hungarian. His friend Lila Snow was a Hungarian and didn't drive, and asked Vigner if he would drive him out to Long Island. That's where Einstein went in the summer to sail, and persuade Einstein to write this letter. Well, it turned out he was sorry he wrote it, but they're driving around, they don't know where Einstein lives, and they see an 8-year-old boy, and they say, "Do you know where Einstein lives?" And he says, "Oh, sure, follow me." And they find Einstein. And one thing I found really interesting is the actual letter was written in German. What irony for that. So the letter was written and delivered to FDR. And we learned much later that the car we bought from Vigner in 1950 for $500 was in fact the historic car that was used for that trip. So back to Yiddish, because when I read the column, I thought of my Bubbe, who sat in the window on East 17th Street in Brooklyn and made comments about life, very wise sayings like the girl across the street who babysat for a family on that street ran away with the father of the children. And of course, that was the scandal of East 17th Street. So to make things look better, her mother bragged to my mother that he just bought her a new car. And my grandmother, we had just bought our first ridiculously old, non-functioning car. But I had a young husband, and my grandmother said, it's better to have an old car and a young husband than a young car and an old husband. So here are some gems from Yiddish. And I have to start with chutzpah and schnurres because it's just incredible how many people will do the most outrageous things. Like guests of ours in Italy, we had bought food ahead of time because our daughter was coming after these guests, and the stores closed in Italy. And they just devoured all the food that we had stashed away. So the old joke, which isn't really very funny, is that chutzpah is when a man who kills his parents asks for leniency because he's an orphan. That's a pretty sick thing. But there's everyone knows about Kvetch. Everyone's always kvetching, complaining, kvetching. But not many people know about kvel. And kvel is when you brag about something. And in Brooklyn, if you bragged about something, someone was bound to yell, kvel, kvel, ring a bell, tell your mother to go to hell. So it was quite an atmosphere to grow up in. And there's also Shlomiel and Shlomasel and Klutz. Klutz is a clumsy person. And it's the Shlomiel, Shlomasel thing where I think the Shlomasel is the person who's always in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the klutz spills something on that person. And then I used to explain what a machatenist was by talking about the relationship between Nixon and Eisenhower, which is not entirely accurate because a machatenist is the relationship between the parents of the bride and parents of the groom. And since David Eisenhower was actually the grandson of Dwight Eisenhower, it's not accurate. But thinking that Nixon and Eisenhower are machatenistas always used to make me laugh. And there are so many other little things like, I'm all verklempt. That's I'm all choked up. Give me time to recover. Give me a few minutes. And there are just so many wonderful words, especially like bupkis, and that means nothing. So it's like she has bupkis on that subject. So there are so many wonderful little stories about that. And the one word that always gets a big laugh is tuchus, which means behind. So actually, I performed for 1,000 physicists. My friend Mildred Kohlberger decided that instead of the usual banquet for the yearly meeting in January in mid-70s at the Hilton Hotel, we would have a show. And I was her secret weapon. So she started with me one-upping Mel Brooks, who had just done the 2,000-year-old man. I was to be the 3,000-year-old woman who knew famous people in history, like Leeuwenhoek, who amazingly in the mid-1600s, he invented the microscope, but he actually, even my dentist didn't know this, he actually invented flossing, because the first thing he did with the microscope was pass thread between his teeth and look at it under the microscope. And when he saw what he saw, every night he used the thread to clean his teeth. And this is a day when people didn't live very long and they lost their teeth at an early age. But he lived into his 90s with all his teeth because he religiously cleaned his teeth. So the joke was that I also knew Leonardo, who is not only famous as an artist, of course, but he did science experiments. And Archimedes, who was a Greek philosopher who got into a bathtub and said, "Eureka, I found it." He realized that the reason ships don't sink is because they're replacing a volume of water. So my joke was that I was trying to help Archimedes find an apartment, and he really wanted a shower, and so on and on with the Yiddish and the scientists kind of thing. But I wanted to save, of course I have to Kvetch, so I wanted to save half the program to talk about the two programs on TLF, sister wives, and what they used to have, 19 kids and counting, because they both celebrate having more children than using up the resources of the planet with some, it's considered cute. How did she manage with 19 children? Well, that program was taken off because firstborn son, Josh Duggar, turned out to be sexually abusing his 5-year-old sister, his babysitter, and 3 other sisters. And the way Mrs. Duggar, who wants to have a 20th child, and the doctor finally explains, your body can't do this anymore. It wants to have 20 children. And my joke is that when they say it takes a village, well, if she had 20 children and her 20 children had 20, which is happening to some extent, to mostly, then there's going to be 400 Duggars, and that's not cute. And there's starvation for the planet, and that's never considered in how cute this is. Also, they take this family, can you imagine traveling with 19 children? They take them to Israel, where there's so much to see, and they go shopping. They're totally ignorant about the currency, so she always thinks she's being cheated. They go to Japan, where there are fantastic things to see, and they stand in the street asking passerbys, do you know a dollar store? Well, you probably could do better going online at the dollar stores. And the way they manage is by enslaving the children. They don't go to school. They're homeschooled. The older girls do all the cleaning and cooking and babysitting. In fact, the 5-year-old drags a wagon around collecting dirty clothes outside the rooms of her siblings. So it's just such an outrage to consider this a cute way of life. And then the sister wives. Here's this man, Cody Brown, who can do a whole program about whether he should have a ponytail or not. He has 4 wives. And if you look into the reason for each one, the premise is that the family's function, here again, is to produce children. So here's this man, he has 18 children. He spends almost no time with them. Doesn't take the older 3 or 4 children on a walk. What's involved in your life? He likes to sit and schmooze with the 4 wives who are in it for a variety of reasons, which as time goes by becomes less relevant. So the first wife, she's supposed to produce a lot of children. Well, she's only able to have 1 who is about to go to college, and he wants her to go through in vitro fertilization. She's 40. And she's not sure she wants to put her body through it. And he says, well, if you won't do it, I'll ask one of the others because I want more children. Huh. So then, of course, a second wife has to be taken for the purpose of producing children. She produces 6, so she fulfills her destiny. But she actually also likes to work. And also, there's never any discussion about who's funding this 22-person household. It's clear that the TV program is providing, but the financial stuff is never discussed. And oh, by the way, Mary gets a 5-bedroom house because she's always wanted 8 children. But now her daughter is going off to college, but she still gets that room. So are they treated equally? And the finances are just crazy. Then a third wife is put in the picture because all she ever wanted in life was to be a stay-at-home wife. So that fits perfectly with taking care of the second wife, 6 children, and her 6 children. And then there's trouble in paradise because Mary is always, that's the first wife, is always odd person out who never fits in because of the whole dynamic of this family. So Robin is the 4th wife. She's a friend of Mary's, and I think that's going to make for peace. And Robin joins. She has her issues. She comes with 3 children. She's living in an unheated trailer. The father of her children is not paying child support. She's absolutely desperate. And she's a sort of goody two-shoes, very sweet woman who wants to make everything work. Her firstborn son has some problems. So this is another thing. When you have a household like that, you have built-in friendships. So if your child has some problem making friends, as her first child does, this gives play dates have to be arranged. It all works out. But then as the children get older, they make their own friends from school. And teenagers don't like it when you keep moving around and moving them from their friends, which happens because they're fleeing the authorities. Because Utah, in order to get statehood, had to make it illegal to have a polygamous household because of the religion. And so they flee to Las Vegas, where they're shocked at the way women dress in Las Vegas on the Strip. They're very modest, but they're all sleeping with Cody Brown. So it just is not only outrageous from a world point of view, from population, from starvation, but to think that this is cute and to focus on how wonderful life is. And it keeps getting worse because as the next generation moves off, there's no longer this reason. Well, they're starting to have the reason for having babies. The one time that Cody Brown is involved with the whole family is he likes to pontificate on Sunday and have a large audience listening to him. So I have some more physics stories. I have some more kvetching, of course. I have some more kvelling. So I hope to Zoom to you again. This is the art scene. I'm your host, Lila Snow, and thanks to my research assistant, Justine Trottier. See you next time.